Setting it up. It's loading. And all right, it looks like we're live.
Awesome. Hi, everybody.
Howdy, friends. Welcome to another Saturday in our PJs. I am so excited to have y'all with us this morning. You're doing something super special. We're here with our church's very own Jonah, the pie making master over there in his kitchen, and he's going to teach us how to make pies, which is actually why I'm in my PJs this morning, my specific PJs. I picked Minnie Mouse because, you know, Minnie Mouse loves to make pies almost as much as Pluto loves to steal them from his windowsill. So I'm going to go ahead and kick us off by lighting our chalice. I'm going to light our chalice for the food that feeds us and in honor of the people who make the food, especially our pie maker. So, Jonah, what kind of pie are we making today?
I thought that we would make an apple pie because apple pie is just a nice classic one that a lot of people can enjoy.
All right.
So I thought I'd take everybody through kind of the steps of putting one together. And so you have a crossroads here. You can either do the dough from scratch, and for anyone who's watching and wants to know any of this information after, I'm going to paste a link in the comments of this video to the basic recipe that I use. So you don't have to rush to write any of this stuff down. So basically, I just take just any old all-purpose flour will work for the dough if you're making it from scratch, and then it's just incorporating some butter and water. But basically, you just cut. It's more complicated than it sounds now, but it's also simple. You just cut the butter into little pieces, and you use 2 knives to make sure the flour coats the butter in tiny pieces. But what you basically end up with is pie dough like this that it's good to shape it into a little disc because it makes rolling it out easier.
So Jonah, I have a question. When you're making your crust, do you do that in like a big bowl, or do you do that just kind of set out and like mush it all together like Play-Doh? Like what's your style technique? So
basically, I'm lucky enough to Cuisinart to use here, food processor, and if you have a food processor, that'll be perfect, and then that makes it take just a second. But and you can basically just combine the flour and butter together, and then you just stream in the water. But if you don't have that, then what you can do is cut the butter by hand with a knife into as small cubes as you can get it, and then take a couple butter knives in a bowl. This part you would use a bowl for that, and then take 2 knives and here, hold that thought. And just in the bowl, you go like that. You just kind of make the knives go together, and picture the butter under here just getting cut over and over and coated by the flour.
Oh, cool. So this is something that our little friends could do because they're butter knives and they could do that safely, right?
That's very true.
All right, cool.
So, and then after you have this round thing of dough, you just take your rolling pin and cutting board, and this is actually kind of this to new bakers. This might seem like a daunting part or frustrating part, but just know that it'll all look the same when you put all the pie ingredients together in the pan. So what you basically just do is roll this out, roll it out in all the different directions until it gets really thin, and then you can take a pie pan and just it's hard to. I should have had one rolled out already so I could show this step, but what you can kind of do is roll the crust from here onto the rolling pin, and then just roll it off onto there, which I understand is a hard step to describe over here.
So I have a question. Every time that I've seen people make pies, because I am not the baker in my household, my partner is. If they have tears, they just kind of take little pieces of the dough and they like smush it into the pan. Is that okay if they do it that way? If they have to kind of like pat it down?
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Yeah, and I used to get frustrated myself a little bit when I was putting the pies together because they'd rip and the crust would come apart and stuff. But what with doing that patching technique, and then just when you bake it, it won't be visible. So just give yourself time and don't be hard on yourself.
It's not about perfection; it's about confection.
Right, exactly. And everyone likes a finished pie no matter what it looks like.
Okay, cool. So after you got your pie crust down, then you work on your filling?
Yeah, so then we'll set the pie crust aside, and so I just take some. I did this step in advance, but basically just some apples that I cut up into tiny slices, and the slices don't have to be this thin. Again, I just used the food processor, so that's why these are so thin, but that's not needed. Then what I do is just mix in some sweetener. You can use sugar, or you can use whatever you have on hand, really. Honey, maple syrup, any of that stuff will work. And then I put some spices too. So good one for anything with apples in it is cinnamon. And then we have nutmeg, and then just some optional stuff if you happen to have it. So I like allspice for that. And then just a little shake of ground ginger.
Ooh, ground ginger sounds great. So I want to clarify that allspice is not all of the spices. Like I shouldn't be like throwing garlic and onion and things like that in with my Granny Smith apples.
You're right. I mean, you could get creative, but yeah, I recommend the spices that go with like kind of holiday stuff or sweet stuff.
Okay, very cool. And then do you let it sit for a while, or do you just throw it straight in?
So this is actually after it sat for a while, and you can see it releases some of the juices. And it might seem like too much liquid when you're pouring it in with the rest, pouring it into the pie crust. But this will actually all cook down into really into a nice, really thick pie filling with the help of this of like a thickener. And so this is arrowroot, but you don't have to use arrowroot. You can also just use more flour. And what you do is just mix in a few tablespoons of that per pie that you're making the filling for. I just use about 4 or 5 apples, and then a bit of the thickener, like some flour, and then the sugar and spices.
All right, cool. And then what comes next?
So so we've already got our pie crust rolled out, and we've got the dough. So I mean the filling, yeah. So I'm actually going to grab a fork. And this is optional. It'll still bake fine without it, but it can kind of help to poke a bunch of holes in the dough.
Oh, okay.
And then what I understand is that gets the liquid in the filling to kind of come into better contact with the heat, so that it really cooks down.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like creating air pockets for the liquid to flow into.
That's right.
Okay. This, by the way, is Hermione. She heard that we were making pies, and she's a big fan of anything that smells good. So she decided to come visit us. This is my kitty Hermione. She was very interested in the pie making process.
So basically, after once the holes are poked in the dough, I will just start putting this in by the handful.
Okay.
This mixture that's already mixed together with the thickener and the spices. So yeah, it doesn't matter if it looks a little wet, because that's all going to cook down. So you just want to spread it into the corners as best you can, so you get a nice even fill. You might find that you have some extra apple pie filling or whatever pie you're making.
Mm-hmm.
You just
we
want
lost you. Oh, there you are.
But you just want to pile it in as much as you can because it'll shrink down a bit in the oven.
Okay. Give it a good pat, but not a smush.
Right. Yeah. You don't want it fully compacted because that'll hurt your crust on the bottom. And then, if you hold it right there. Then I have the rest of this crust from when I had to roll out the first pie crust. This is just the bits that I trimmed off the sides.
Oh, okay.
So I'll just take a bit of flour for the cutting board, and I hope this works out like I think it will. Sometimes the dough is a little tricky to work with. But yeah, you just start, roll it out, just rolling, and then it'll crack. It'll look like it's cracking when you're rolling it out, but don't be frustrated. Just keep going, and it'll work itself out.
Is there do you like spin I see you're kind of moving the crust as you roll it. Is that because to try to keep it round as you roll?
Yeah, because when we're rolling this out to go straight on top, after we maybe make a little design in it. So I'm just trying to get this out as flat as possible real quick.
Does it matter how thick it is, or are you just looking for flat and like width?
We do want it to be kind of thin, if possible, because that's how the crust will get like real toasted up perfectly and not too just a real good light bite to it.
Yeah. So I see you're rubbing flour on top of your rolling pin. Is that to help the pie crust not stick to the rolling pin?
Yeah, that's right. So you want a good amount on your cutting board, and then some for the rolling pin in your hands too. So you'll see, like little bits come off. Don't worry about that because, it's just we have plenty left on here, so we'll be fine.
Your rolling looks a little bit like a butterfly.
Yeah, it's kind of like the cloud. You can always see different shapes. All right. So this is, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not actually looking for this to be round because we can trim off the edges after.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is almost as thin as we want it. And this is also optional. If you don't feel like doing a whole second crust, you can do if you had to do the pie open face, that would end up being a good result too. But I like how it looks with the top crust. So then a cool thing to do is you can take another pie pan and kind of trace around the edge to get a round circle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trimming off whatever excess I don't need.
So for somebody who might have kind of small arms or small hands, would you recommend somebody else holding the pie pan while they do the tracing?
Yeah, that's right. For your little ones, definitely ask your parents for help on that part. So we have this round thing, and now I'm going to get to show you this step I was talking about with holding it on the rolling pin. So the dough will actually stick to the rolling pin. You just kind of have to trust it. So you just put it on the edge, roll it back, and then it's on there. So
kind of like an exercise in faith.
Yeah, perfect. And then you just kind of line it up with the edge. And if it doesn't go,
that is. That's awesome.
Thank you. So and then you just kind of match it up you make sure it's matched up with the bottom crust. And then I like to do a design. Let me get a knife real quick. So you can get, some people get really complicated with these designs, but I just like to keep it sometimes I keep it simple. You can just kind of do a couple lines across the top Nice little X.
And is there a purpose in cutting into the pie, or is it purely decorative?
So actually, this opening in the top that I created, that will help the steam. So that'll help the steam get out, and that helps the filling get nice and thick.
Ooh.
And then so after that, I'll just sort of use a fork, simply just crimping the edges. And some people have fancier ways to do this, but I've always just used a fork.
Oh, are we still live? It looks like we're still live. I'm a little worried we might have lost our connection, but we'll hope that we're still on.
Mine says live on Facebook, so I think we're good.
Excellent. Good.
So and you want to just kind of make sure that's open if you did a design like that. And then at that point it is, or I like to give it a little shake of cinnamon. But after that, it's going to be ready.
All right, and then it just goes in the oven? Yeah,
so just in the oven like that, and I like to 375 is good, or 380, 370. It's all going to be about the same, all good temperatures.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then what does it look like after it goes in the oven?
So I have a finished one already here, and yeah, so you can see it kind of shrinks down a bit.
That's so cool. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
And look at that awesome design.
Thanks.
And I think, speaking of chalice designs, maybe it's time to extinguish our chalice now that you've taught us all this wonderful information about how to make a pie. So I'm going to go ahead and extinguish the chalice, everybody. I want you to remember that just because the fire goes out, it doesn't mean that the flame of community isn't still in our hearts. Remember, you are loved.
And you are cherished.
And you are not alone. So thank you so much for joining us on Facebook Live. And we will see you tomorrow for our worship service. And I hope that you are now inspired to make your own beautiful pie creation to enter into our pie contest for the All Church Picnic. And I hope to see you at the All Church Picnic. Reverend Tim, Chloe, and I will be having I Am a Chubby Bunny marshmallow competition. We'll be playing Smooth and Creamy, and we'll have some show and tell. So we hope to see you there. Get your picnic basket ready. If you want to play along with Reverend Tim and Chloe and I, then get your big marshmallows when somebody does their safe shopping trip today or sometime this week. And we will see you soon. And now I have to figure out how to end Facebook Live because Miss Linda always does this for me for the worship services. So bear with me and have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much, Jonah.